do that great, Jillian. Yeah. Okay. Hey, I'm Thomas Teig. I'm president and CEO of directrelief.org. And thank you very much for having me on Motherhood Moment. And I saw you sent in a few questions about charitable giving at this time of year, and I'd be happy to kind of go through them for you. Your first question is that there are so many charities out there requesting donations. How can people sort through them all and pick a good one? It's a great question, and I think it would be presumptuous for me to pretend I knew how to pick, mainly because what's most important is what you care about. And I think that's where you have to start, what things that matter to you. There's so many compelling causes, from animal welfare to arts groups to education to what Direct Relief does, humanitarian medical assistance. They're all important. But once you find that, I think it's also important to sift through it by looking at an organization like Charity Navigator, that's an independent rating organization of nonprofits that can tell you if it's legitimate, if it uses the money wisely, and if it's well governed. So I think the two steps to kind of make sense of it is, first of all, resolve what you are concerned about. It's your money after all, and it's an expression of your values. And then once you figure that out, to make sure that you're not being manipulated emotionally by looking at someone who just rates charities like Charity Navigator, who does this. I mean, Direct Relief, for example, happens to get very high ratings, but Charity Navigator would be just as happy to give us a very low rating. It's not their job to favor one or the other. It's to just do an independent analysis on what they can analyze. Your next question was, how are charities rated? What do those ratings mean? And should people make their giving decisions on ratings alone? You know, I think, as I said, there's so many different types of organizations and causes. It's difficult to compare the relative merits of them. And rating organizations cannot do that. What they can do is compare the objective facts related to money, how much they've received, how much has been spent on things like fundraising or general management. And those are important facts, just as I guess, you know, it happens with respect to public companies. There's all sorts of companies, but there are analysts who compare their financial performance. And I think that's kind of the mindset that is underneath Charity Navigator. How can you have that kind of screen to give people confidence that, you know, it just doesn't sound good, but the money is being used wisely compared to how other nonprofit organizations are using the money. And so that is basically the basis of the rating. I don't think it makes sense to go to college based on the college rating, buy a car solely on how the ratings, or to make a charitable contributions just based on the, you know, how a charity is rated. It's a personal decision, an expression of what people care about, individuals. So it's an important factor, but I don't think it would make sense just to, I say that reluctantly because Direct Relief happens to be very well rated, but again, it's important for people to make sure that their charitable gift reflects what they care about, and that it's well spent. So not just ratings alone. Your rating is ultimately the important one. I think your next question is that says public trust in charities is at an 8-year low. What have charities done to deserve this cynicism, and how can charities win back public trust? And I think charities probably are not alone in being at an 8-year low in terms of public trust. I think a lot of institutions have fallen with respect to how the regard in which they're held. But it's important to earn it back. When public institutions, people lose trust in them, it's just not a good result. With respect to charitable organizations, I think the signal that Direct Relief has received is pretty clear. People are skeptical, particularly in high-profile emergencies where there's an outpouring of generosity. And then there always seems to be, a year or two later, these stories that come back and say, well, that money didn't seem to be well used. Remember all that money and the television appeals and that sort of thing? and that's Hurricane Sandy, it's Hurricane Katrina, it's the Haiti earthquake, it's the Japanese earthquake. And so I think the signal's pretty clear from the public to nonprofits. What did you do with the money? Did you do what you said? And did it make any difference? And I think at Direct Relief, thankfully we haven't been put into any controversial thing. I think it's been consistent, and I think in part because we have been focused on just reporting, listening to what we know people care about, and trying to just put it out in advance before it's even asked for. So I think Direct Relief provides a level of financial information that's far more than is required by the IRS, and I think that's important. People like that. And I think things like that can earn, we've certainly seen every time we provide more information, the reaction has been very positive. So I think that the lesson that we can share is that to earn this sort of trust back to the extent it's eroded is just to listen carefully and respond to the issues that are clearly there. And it relates to how did you keep your word? Did you tell the truth? Did you do what you said? And did you use the money wisely? And I think if you can respond to those questions well, I think overall, I think the trust will come back. The next question is, how important are donations provided during the giving season to Direct Relief's ability to do its work? Do charities like Direct Relief get most of their funding from donations or from the government? It's a great question. Direct Relief gets all of its support from private charitable contributions. So we rely very heavily, as do other groups that don't receive government support for its work. There are many fine organizations that do rely largely on government grants and support. That doesn't mean they don't need charitable gifts. They do. I don't think any of them are rolling in it. I think this is a time of year between now or say Thanksgiving and the end of the year when 30 to as much as 50% of all contributions are made in a year in the United States. So it's hugely consequential for certainly Direct Relief, but also many other organizations that rely on charitable gifts that they come in. It's hard to plan when such a big spike in your annual contributions come in a 6-week period. So it's a white-knuckled, nail-biting, kind of grip the rail time of year, and you do what you can without being that nagging nonprofit that's doing something, crossing a line, but you really hope that you've done it as best you can to impress the supporters and encourage them to be supportive. And it's critically important, certainly for Direct Relief and many other groups, to get that year-end support that they've come to rely on, because that's the pattern of giving in the United States. Finally, your question is, Direct Relief has the unique perspective of working with local nonprofit organizations in all 50 states and in 70 countries around the world. If I were to donate to a nonprofit organization that wasn't Direct Relief, how would I choose? Well, it's a great question. I would try to follow my own advice of finding the things that I personally care about and then making sure that an organization that I was considering supporting would do right with the financial support that I was considering giving. Personally, I think with 2 children with learning differences, one who's grown up dealing with autism and receiving amazing services from a very fine organization focused on autism research and behavioral therapy, that matters to me. And I know that an organization that does good work, and I do support it. I know how the money's spent. And I didn't really need to research it on Charity Navigator because I knew it personally. But there are a lot of other groups that I care about, and many of which Direct Relief supports in the United States. Over 4,000 nonprofit organizations that provide health services to the least fortunate people in communities around the United States. They all need help, and Direct Relief works with many of them, and it's a privilege for me to be able to support some of them personally outside of work, knowing that at work we have, at Direct Relief, have done such careful due diligence to make sure that they're doing what they say, they do it well, and they do. So I think I've tried to follow my own advice. There's a lot of Santa Barbara neighborhood clinics is one. I think there's a lot of autism groups, the Kegel Autism Center at University of California is a fine one. Autism Speaks is another one. So, but there are about 3,888 more on Direct Relief's website that I know personally deserve the support, and it's a privilege for Direct Relief to support them. So thank you, Motherhood Moment. Appreciate the questions. Please visit us at directrelief.org. We hope there's good, inspiring information for you, and if you're in a position to give, that might be something you could consider as well. Thanks a lot.